All right. Well, here we are with my good friend Jessica Yellin, who is one of the smartest people that I know. And when it comes to politics, government, COVID-19, any of it, she's my go-to because she explains things as well as anyone and makes it really digestible. So, Jessica, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for the nice intro.
I'm excited to talk to you because I am so confused all the time, but in particular this time with what's happening with the mask. I've seen a couple of videos
Yeah.
that suggest that if we wear the mask, it actually works against us. What is the truth?
So there's a big conspiracy theory around this online, and I just trust the science. And the science says you need to wear the mask. What the mask does is it means if you go outside and if you have COVID and you don't know you have it, because that happens a lot. Some people will get it and not know they have it. If you cough, it contains it. So it's really protecting other people from you. It's to limit the spread. At the same time, it does nothing to hurt you. There's this rumor that somehow it makes you sick because if you have COVID and you exhale into the mask, you suck the virus back into yourself.
Yep.
That's crazy. That's not science. You don't reinfect yourself. So it's good. It helps protect other people from you. It does not hurt you. Sometimes it smells bad, so you might want to wash your mask.
I'm glad you cleared that because I never did well in science in school. So, some governors are starting to open up the gates up a little bit here. Like, we have 4 kids at home. What does that mean for us? Should we be just going out and just being careful, or just even limit the times we go out?
It's super confusing, and it really depends where you live. And so this is a really complicated situation. Where you are, it's very limited because where you are, there's still an outbreak that's increasing. And so they only want you still to go do the essential things, only the market, only the pharmacy. But soon, in like 25 states and other places, you can go out and do more, but it's still limited. They want you to wear the mask. You're still going to stay 6 feet apart. You want to cough into your elbow, and you only want to do what you have to do. It's a whole other thing about kids because it does not look like school is coming back, and it doesn't look like camp is happening. So they're going to be home with you for a while.
So the test, I am so confused with the testing.
Yeah.
What kind? I hear there's 2 type of tests, 3 type of tests. Can you explain that to us?
Okay. So there's 2 main kinds of tests. One is what's called a PCR test, which is a very uncomfortable nasal swab where they stick this thing all the way up here. It feels like it's digging into your brain. And they test to see if you have COVID right this minute. That's what it's for. Then there's something called the antibody test, which is where they draw your blood or you prick your finger, and they test to see if you've developed a reaction to COVID, if you have the antibody, meaning did you at some point in the past already have it, and are you maybe protected? The first test I described is what tells you if you're sick right now and you should stay home. It's a short window test. The antibody test where they draw the blood is the one that's going to help you get out of the house long term and figure out if you're protected from it for a while. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Okay.
Now I know that Washington D.C. is spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
At enough? Can they be doing more?
I mean, this sort of depends on your politics, but almost every business leader I know, every economist, every public policy expert says they have done a huge amount and they need to do more. Because with people at home, the economy, as you know, is stagnant. And how do you get it going again? Somebody needs to infuse cash to create demand. And it's got to be the government. So,
and what is the next fight?
Say it again.
What is their next fight? What's next for them?
The big battle, there's a couple things, but the big battle is what's going to happen to business. So Republicans are arguing that we need a trial reform, legal protections for businesses. So let's say you open up a restaurant and your workers come and your customers come and they get COVID. Are you protected from lawsuits or not? That's what the Republicans are focused on. The Democrats are saying, well, wait, you can't do that until you create new rules that say, as a business, you have to abide by these protections to keep your customers and your clients safe. So make people sit 6 feet apart. And if you don't, you're in trouble. And they're fighting over worker protections first, business protections first. That's the main fight on the horizon. And then there's going to be a lot of struggle over money and more funding.
So we talked about money, health, testing. How does all of that play into the next political campaign?
I mean, that is the $100,000 question. I think, I covered politics for like 17 years, and I think that the campaign will be about kind of a referendum. Did President Trump do enough, act quickly? Do we want more of this leadership to fight COVID and get the economy going? Or did he fail and we need a change? Democrats will try to argue that this was the biggest test of his presidency and he failed, that he was too slow, that we don't have the testing, et cetera. And the Republicans will argue this was one of the world's greatest crises. Nobody could have seen it coming. He did a great job before. Let's get back to that and keep going on the track we were before.
Any other political concerns that we're not seeing besides just the health and the economics? Anything else we should be considering?
Such a good question. So this is a huge thing, which is the actual election itself. Okay, stick with me. The election is on November 3rd. All the health experts predict that COVID is going to go on the decline and you're going to feel comfortable and feel like we're back to normal in the summer. And then in October, it's going to, bam, hit us again in a big way and have this infection rate that's crazy right before the election. And so there's this prediction that people won't want to go out and wait in line to vote. And are you going to want to touch the machines with thousands of other people in the middle of an outbreak? So how do you prepare for an election in the middle of a mass pandemic? Some people are saying we need to vote by mail, but the one complication is the mail office, the post office is about to go bankrupt. So we might not have a post office by November unless Congress bails out the post office. So it's very, very complicated, and Congress really needs to take some steps to protect the election itself.
Jess, would there ever be a moment where we actually vote on our phones?
I don't know. Like, if you talk to anybody who's like your kid's age, I'm sure they'd be like, obviously, why wouldn't we vote on our phones? But people who are the adults in charge right now think no way. Like, it can't be, they think it's not safe enough. There's all sorts of reasons they say no. I think someday, yes, but it'll be when like Natasha and Ella are in charge of the world, not when you and I and our generation are.
Fascinating. It is scary times, that's for sure. But you make it sound so clear and so understandable. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Which is, I've read that baseball is talking about coming back in July, but one of the things they're thinking about is having everybody play at their home stadium, so that people don't have to travel. But doesn't one team always have to travel? Like,
yeah, that's kind of simple math, right?
Right.
I think what they're trying to do is simplify things. They've talked about going from 6 divisions to 3 and keep it a little bit more regional. And by playing in your home stadiums, it does 2 things. You have indoor parkings where people can actually control their spacing a little bit better. The major league clubhouses are bigger than the minor league clubhouses. Therefore, even the way you stagger people, it could be a lot more organized. And I think thirdly, there was talks about going to Florida and Arizona, but one thing people don't realize, the lights are different. When you're down in Arizona and Florida, those are really what you call AAA lights. And once you come up to the big major league stadiums, you see the ball so much better. So I just think it's so much more predictable and wiser to play in an uncertain time in a very certain environment.
And do you think it'll be a scenario where there aren't fans in the stadium? It'll just be the players, yeah? Yeah,
I think at the beginning, it certainly will be no fans. They're doing that already in Taiwan and other places. And I think this is just a way to get back into the game. Look, I always say that if you're a 10-year-old boy or girl, you go after your favorite, blanket or your favorite little doll. For us Americans who love sports, baseball is a comfort food, and we want to reach for it, and is there every night. And if you love music and you don't like sports, imagine a world without music. And I think baseball and sports is such a big part of this country's morale and energy and enthusiasm. that I know the commissioner's office is working around the clock to make sure they do it right and they do it safety. Look, players want to play and fans want to watch, so I'm hopeful.
Yeah. It sounds like they'll find a solution. And we need to get the economy going, this is one way to help. Do you have a theory why the stock market is doing so well, even though unemployment's through the roof?
You have almost 31 million people unemployed. And I think there's a little bit of a sugar rush. And, the market can go down from 10 to 15%. But if you take a step back, it doesn't feel like we're 10 or 15% when it comes to the morale. So for me, it feels like 50% down, but the market only says completely different, right? 15 or 10%. I think traders are making a lot of money, but if you're a value investor and you're investing for the long run, most smart money is in the sidelines right now, just waiting because things are too uncertain. The only ones that like turbulence are traders, but 99% of the people are not traders. They're value investors. So for example, Jessica, if you own a Disney stock, if you own a Berkshire Hathaway stock, Amazon, you usually want to own it for the long haul. Right now is just too much volatility. And the best thing you can do is step out. You might miss a little bit of the ups or the little bit of the downs, but let things calm down, then come in for the long run.
So the volatility we're seeing is short-term bets. These aren't long-term hold. I see.
Yes. By the way, if something comes out about maybe a drug is around the horizon, you'll see the market jump. And then if it was a false alarm, you see it come down. So, but traders love this. I mean, any trader, they want to see this. Yeah. You and I, Jessica, we want calm.
I'm looking for my calm. Send some my way. And maybe a workout or two. It's hard to stay in shape in quarantine.
Oh my gosh. I'm eating way too much.
I don't believe it.
So Jess, you spent a long time with CNN covering politics. You spent a long time in Washington, D.C. I know you have some great friends back there. You did a little bit of consulting with me. You helped me out tremendously coming out of my suspension. I give you a lot of credit for helping me putting really just my story together and package it in a way that I hadn't done before. So I thank you for that. But you've now transitioned into book writing. You're working on a tech company that you're going to have a little bit of a starter, which I'm very excited. I hope you let me invest. But I love what you're doing on social media. Your Instagram, if you're watching this, go to Jessica Yellin. She has the best Instagram because it makes it so digestible. Tell me, first of all, what gave you the idea to go to Instagram and why are you so good at it?
Oh my God, Alex, thank you. First of all, you're the best raw material. And I've never met anybody who works as hard as you do. So our time together was special. The whole thing with Instagram for me was that I got into the news because I thought it's a way to help people get excited about taking part in stuff that's happening in our country, caring about government, voting, being involved. And it's like the foundation of democracy. I know that sounds so corny, but if you don't understand what's happening, you can't participate. So I want to help people understand. I felt like a lot of what I did in the news made things more confusing, turned off people. A lot of times it's so much shouting, it's so much negativity. It makes people go like, I can't take it. So I had this whole idea, what if I told the news differently? Could I reach a different audience and get them interested? And I picked Instagram because it felt like, I started like a year and a half ago, it felt like a super neutral environment. They didn't have any of those issues around fake news. And it's very female, some heavy as an audience. And I thought I was trying to get a female audience, but it's also just a great way to communicate. And I started with 400 followers just to see what would happen. And it took off. I mean, I don't have followers like you do, but people watch. And yeah, I really liked being able to tell a story and then people write back and say, I didn't understand this, or tell me more about that, or why do you put it this way? And you have that kind of conversation is so satisfying because you're actually connecting with people.
I love that. Now, I'm wondering, because one of my biggest challenges, Jessica, is how do I manage my time between, my beautiful partner, to the 4 kids at home, to trying to go run and see my mother and obviously manage the businesses. With you, you do almost maybe more than me, where you're an entrepreneur, you're a writer, you have Yellin consultant. And I love this because you consulted and helped me tremendously and brought so much value, but you've also helped a handful of people that I've sent your way, and they come back raving about how much you do for people. My question is, how do you divide your time right now?
Well, I'm home all the time, so it makes it very easy. You can find me right here. I don't know. Don't you find like the busier you are, the more you get done?
Yeah.
Like, it's a weird thing. Just your tasks expand to take up your time. And as long as you're excited about what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work. I think we have this workaholism addiction in common. And so if you like being busy and you like working, it's easy to get engaged. I just like, how do you follow all the news? There's so much happening all the time. Keeping up with that is a full-time job too.
Jess, if you're a minority, if you're a Latino boy and girl coming up in this country, if you're an immigrant, if you're come of just a minority, like I've come up from, I always say that, you know, Jennifer and I grew up with holes in our shoes, and we're in this incredible position to be able to give back and use our platforms for, as you call it, a double bottom line. What can we do, us, and also younger people, to be able to create a better world for ourselves in the future from a leadership point of view?
I think it's a great question. I think that, you know, we've seen a lot of leadership emerge in the Black community in the last 20 years. And I think that we need leaders in the Latino community in the US. And I think that you and Jennifer are among them. I mean, the work you've done for Puerto Rico is really remarkable. And I know that you've given back to Miami, especially in the face of COVID. Part of it is leadership like that. And part of it is all of us. I know this sounds, I think that part of what COVID is teaching us is we have to think about other people. Like I said at the beginning, you wear a mask to protect other people from you. And it's forcing us to connect with our empathy. And so the more we can participate and think about our impact on others, the more, like, then we've learned something from this pandemic. So the most important thing for me right now is making sure everyone can vote and has the opportunity to vote and does vote. So anyone watching should take the steps to be able to register and get a mail-in ballot. And see what you can do for your neighbor or for people who don't have food. We just found out 1 in 5 kids in America is underfed right now.
Wow.
Little things make a difference.
Jess, I have a question for you because I am so like blown away with you and your background. I know you're very close to your mother. And I love her. She's the best. But one of my big regrets was not getting to meet your late father. And here's a man who graduated from Harvard Law, and he had the foresight of going to downtown and invest at a time it wasn't very popular back then. Can you share one lesson that you've learned from both your mother and your father?
Oh my God. Dude, you're putting me on the spot. Yes. Okay.
You have great parents.
I do. My dad used to say, sometimes it's important to say what needs to be said before people are ready to hear it. Say what needs to be said before. Don't wait for something to be popular before doing what you believe is right. And that's part of the thing. He went into downtown LA at a time everyone's like, oh, you're never going to make money there. Now it's a big booming success, but he was 40 years early. So it kind of taught me it's okay to take a risk. And then, gosh, what did my mom says the craziest thing. She used to say, the egg doesn't fall very far from the tree, which is a combination of two. But you know what? She always taught me to speak up and have a voice. She's very outspoken. And sometimes that's tricky, but it also, as a woman especially, sometimes you feel shy or it's not appropriate to speak out. And she taught me, you know, use your voice.
You went to Westlake, Harvard. Harvard, Westlake, and then you went to Harvard.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Dad, why'd you go to Harvard and not Princeton or another great school?
You know, my dad went to Harvard Law, but he didn't go into Harvard undergraduate. And when I was really little, they used to, my dad's Harvard Law diploma, they hung it really low in the wall. So when I'm still short, but I would walk right past it as like a 4-year-old. And my mom would always say, you're going to college there. It kind of wasn't a choice. like from 4. So I was Jason Bourne into it. Anytime I think that I was a grind as a kid, I think of you and that story you once told me about like how dedicated you were to learning baseball. You used to hit, I don't even understand this, kidney beans with your baseball bat. What was even the purpose of that?
Yeah, it's funny. I've always been, I've always had the mentality of David and not Goliath.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to be the best prepared I can possibly be. And I've always been process driven and not result driven. And part of the process was going above and beyond to be in a position to be able to succeed. One of the drills that you're mentioning is I used to take little red beans and I would get a broomstick and cut it in half, and that would be my bat. And then I would have one of my friends literally throw me like 100, and I wouldn't stop till I hit like 75 or 100.
Which is hard because they're little and hard to hit, right?
Tiny, and a lot of times you don't have good lighting. So what that would do is when I would go play my Major League Baseball game, with the Yankees and all that, when I showed up, if it worked, the baseball looks like a beach ball. And I had this big bat, right? So it was just great hand-eye coordination. It worked on my confidence. And anytime I got in a little slump, I would go to the beans and the broomstick.
But this is one of the things people don't know enough about you is just like how driven you are and that you have skill, but you practice. And yeah, I think we share workaholism in common.
Love it. We love it. Well, I'm so glad you were able to answer a lot of my questions, and I'm going to come back for more. I think we should do this again very soon because the world is so fluid and everything changes so much. I mean, I remember speaking to you 10 days ago and it was like a whole set of different challenges. And now the world just keeps changing. And the other thing is like all these conspiracy theories. Thank you so much for landing some of these questions for us. And I hope that we catch up very soon, Jess.
I would love it. And I would just love to quarantine where you are. That looks really nice.